Buckingham Palace has tonight announced the death of the oldest member of the royal family, Catherine, the Duchess of Kent.
Buckingham Palace releasing a statement confirming she died at her home in Kensington Palace.
Prince Harry has finally broken his silence after Angela Levin's explosive comments, and the shockwaves are still reverberating through royal circles and beyond. What was once whispered speculation suddenly erupted into a full-scale public scandal, one that places not just Harry and Meghan under scrutiny, but the very idea of royal legitimacy itself. For years, the couple has attempted to control the narrative, weaving their story through interviews, documentaries, and book deals, but Angela Levin's bold intervention has ripped the curtain away in a way few could have predicted, and the world is watching closely, wondering whether the Sussexes can survive the firestorm that now threatens to consume them. It all began with what seemed like another passing rumor, the kind of chatter that floats around celebrities and royals alike. But Levin didn't deal in whispers. She detonated her comments with the force of someone who has observed the royals for decades, saying out loud what countless critics and even some supporters had been hinting at. Her suggestion that the Sussex children's origins may not be as straightforward as the public has been led to believe struck at the monarchy's most sacred foundation, bloodline. This wasn't simply gossip. It was a question of constitutional consequence. Monarchies live or die by lineage, and suddenly the future of two young children became a matter of global speculation. Harry's reaction was immediate and furious. Instead of calmly addressing the speculation, providing clarity, or even offering proof that would silence doubters in an instant, he reached for legal threats. Once again, the prince, who claimed to despise the press and its supposed cruelty, leaned on lawyers to shield himself. But the irony was impossible to miss. Legal threats don't end rumors, they amplify them. Every fiery letter, every whispered threat of a lawsuit only convinced the public there was more to the story. It looked less like strength and more like desperation, the flailing of a man cornered by truths he couldn't control. The contrast to royal tradition couldn't be sharper. For decades, royal mothers followed a familiar script. They gave birth, they stepped outside hospital doors, and they presented their child to the waiting world. Diana did it, Kate did it. Even exhausted and overwhelmed, they allowed the public a glimpse, a reassurance that everything was as it seemed. Meghan, however, shredded that tradition, replacing it with mystery, staged photo ops, and inconsistencies that fueled endless speculation. When Angela Levin raised her bombshell questions, she tapped into doubts already simmering for years. Why were there no transparent hospital moments? Why no official medical bulletins? Why so many carefully curated photographs instead of simple openness? Harry's defense of Meghan, once considered romantic, now seems more like blind loyalty. He has positioned himself as a man protecting his wife and children from the cruelty of the media. But the more he fights, the more the cracks in his story show. His silence on key details, paired with Meghan's calculated avoidance, doesn't read as dignity. It reads as fear, and fear is never a good look for a prince whose duty was once to embody confidence and stability. Every unanswered question leaves space for whispers to grow louder, and Levin's words turn those whispers into a roar. What makes this even more damaging is the timing. The Sussexes' credibility was already strained after failed media deals, an abandoned Spotify contract, and growing skepticism about their endless victim narrative. The silence during their wedding anniversary only underscored the sense that their once glittering brand is fading. No tributes, no Hollywood friends staging support, just emptiness. Against that backdrop, Levin's accusations landed like a lightning strike, exposing vulnerabilities the couple could no longer hide. For a duo who once sold themselves as disruptors rewriting the royal rulebook, their silence now paints them as irrelevant figures desperately clinging to the shadows. At the core of Levin's comments lies one brutal truth: DNA. The mere mention of it set the conversation ablaze. A single test could end the speculation forever, yet Harry and Meghan treat the idea as if it were poison. Commentators, journalists, and even some who once defended the couple began demanding proof. Not Netflix specials, not glossy magazine spreads, just hard evidence. The refusal to provide it only deepened suspicion. Why dodge something so simple if the truth is on your side? Instead of reassurance, the Sussexes' silence screamed avoidance, and the idea of legitimacy itself grew shakier with each passing day. The danger here is larger than Harry and Meghan's personal reputation. This isn't merely about two children, it's about the stability of the crown itself. The monarchy has survived wars, scandals, and abdications, but it has always rested on one unshakable foundation: clear lineage. By clouding that lineage in secrecy, Harry and Meghan have risked unraveling the very thing they claim to have fled to protect. Imagine the consequences if Parliament were ever forced to intervene, demanding medical records, DNA evidence, and courtroom testimony. The mystique of royalty would be dragged into the harsh light of cross-examination, and the damage might never be repaired. Angela Levin didn't simply raise questions, she issued a warning. She suggested that if Harry continues to lash out legally, he risks triggering a courtroom showdown where titles mean nothing and evidence means everything, and she hinted that she may have more revelations waiting. A cache of information that could devastate the Sussexes if released. For a couple who built their brand on controlling the narrative, the idea that someone else might control their story is the ultimate nightmare. And while Harry fumes, Meghan's absence from the spotlight is equally telling. Once eager to position herself as the modern face of royalty, she now seems to retreat into silence, leaving Harry to flounder alone. But her silence doesn't read as strength. To critics, it looks like calculation, an attempt to avoid entangling herself further in a scandal spiraling beyond her control. Yet every day she refuses to speak. Suspicion only deepens. The woman who branded herself as authentic now risks being remembered as evasive, the very opposite of the values she claimed to embody. The fallout has already begun. Once coveted media contracts are crumbling, invitations are drying up. Hollywood, once enchanted by the couple's story, now views them as liabilities. Angela Levin's comments didn't just dent their image, they spotlighted how fragile it had already become. The Sussexes, once hailed as icons of change, now appear as figures of controversy, their credibility hanging by a thread. And at the heart of it all are two children whose futures are clouded by whispers. Archie and Lilibet were supposed to symbolize a bridge between tradition and modernity, proof that the monarchy could evolve. Instead, their very existence is now a source of speculation that threatens the monarchy's continuity. It's a cruel twist, but one that Harry and Meghan themselves fueled through secrecy, contradictions, and a refusal to follow the transparent traditions that once reassured the public. In the end, Harry's silence speaks louder than his threats. His furious responses don't project strength, they reveal fear. Meghan's silence doesn't preserve dignity, it suggests avoidance. And Angela Levin's comments didn't create the scandal, they exposed it. The monarchy has weathered storms before, but rarely has it faced a situation where the legitimacy of heirs is doubted so publicly. For Harry and Meghan, the path forward grows narrower by the day. One simple step, a test, a document, a moment of transparency, could silence the storm, but their refusal to take it ensures that the storm only grows stronger. Prince Harry's decision to respond with anger rather than evidence may prove to be his greatest misstep yet. In trying to silence Angela Levin, he amplified her words, guaranteeing they will echo longer and louder than if he had ignored them. And as the public continues to ask the questions he refuses to answer, one truth becomes undeniable. Silence is no longer their shield, it is their undoing. The ripple effect of this saga is already reaching further than the Sussexes might have imagined. Within the palace walls, discussions about legitimacy and succession are said to be intensifying. Senior courtiers reportedly fear that if doubts continue unchecked, the monarchy's authority itself could erode. Even those who once supported Harry privately now wonder if his stubbornness is creating a constitutional crisis far greater than any personal scandal. The stakes are no longer just reputational, they are institutional. Meanwhile, in the court of public opinion, sympathy for Harry and Meghan is waning. Many once saw them as victims of an outdated system, bravely forging a new path. Now, increasing numbers view them as architects of their own downfall. Every appearance seems staged, every silence calculated, every legal threat a reminder of what they refuse to confront. Public patience is wearing thin, and the Sussexes' carefully crafted image of victimhood is collapsing under the weight of unanswered questions. For Meghan, the silence may prove even more costly. Her carefully built brand as a voice of authenticity and empowerment is now overshadowed by doubt. Critics argue that her refusal to address Levin's comments undermines everything she has preached about honesty and transparency. Supporters who once cheered her boldness are beginning to feel betrayed, left wondering if the woman who spoke so often of living your truth has been hiding hers all along. Harry, on the other hand, seems trapped in a cycle of anger and denial. Instead of rising above the speculation, he reacts emotionally, adding fuel to the fire. His fiery temper, once dismissed as youthful impulsiveness, now makes him look unstable in the eyes of many observers. What he views as defense looks to the public like deflection. Each angry outburst, each threat of legal action is another reminder that he has yet to offer the one thing people want most: clarity. The question now is whether the Sussexes can find a way out of this storm before it permanently defines them. Time is not on their side. With every passing week, the whispers become headlines, the rumors become assumptions, and the assumptions harden into belief. If they continue to refuse transparency, they risk cementing themselves not as reformers of the monarchy, but as its most controversial cautionary tale. Angela Levin may not have intended to unravel the Sussex brand entirely, but her comments have done just that. By framing the questions others were too cautious to ask, she forced the couple into a corner, and their response, or lack thereof, has only validated the doubts. Whether or not her claims hold truth almost becomes irrelevant. The damage is already done, the story is out, and the world won't let it go until answers are given. Ultimately, the tragedy of this situation is that it didn't have to spiral this far. A moment of transparency early on could have prevented years of speculation. A single decision to honor tradition, to provide clarity, might have preserved their credibility. Instead, secrecy became their hallmark, and now that secrecy is tearing their empire apart. Angela Levin may have spoken the words, but Harry and Meghan's choices gave those words their devastating power.